Wow. We are opening a really big mm, subject here as I'm just checking around my Zoom. Men and their emotions. It's a huge topic, and I've got to be honest with you. It's something I talk to men about day in, day out. And as a male, I consider myself doing a reasonably good job of understanding my own emotional state. And as I put this together, I am always dumbfounded by my resistance to it and inner dialogue of you don't know enough. I've only been working at this my whole life and doing it almost professionally for 12 years. And I just wanted to bring that here because I so often feel an energy with these that I need to be, more professional, more slick, more up together. And it's simply not true. The truth is that I'm enough. And even that is a work in progress for me. And I love the subject of emotions, and more recently moving towards the exploration of wholeheartedness and what does that look like, and using that as a leading light rather than what I spend a lot of my time doing, which is helping people resolve inner violence, resolve their inner conflict. And it gets really confusing because by and large, we are convinced that the stuff out there is making us upset, angry, pleased, happy, pleasured. And my whole take on it is there is no out there without an in here. So there are 87 emotions, according to some great work done by Brene Brown for the last, I think, up to 10 years. And I'm going to list them in a minute. And she said we usually range or hover around 3 feeling descriptions: good, bad, or pissed off. The truth of that is just insane. I'm going to start with a little reading from a beautiful book called Letting the Wild Edges In. And this is about winter and the movement from December into January. And as the subject is emotion, you would argue it would be easy to connect to the emotion. Yet the words are the best we've got here, and words keep us in the head. Yes, nail varnish still not removed for those of you that speak to me regularly. So this reading here just helps bring a sense of heart, a sense of soul, a sense of the body, a sense of the earth and our environment into this heady place that so many of us can just spend way too much time. The earth is resting now, and if we can, we must slow down and rest too. This is a piece describing the movement from December into January. It is a good time to settle back into our local environment and appreciate the land and the friends and neighbors we have around us. Winter brings shortness of daylight, and above ground there is very little growth. But below the surface, roots are growing, bringing stability and strength to the plants and trees that will support their future. The dark of winter gives us the opportunity to connect to what lies within, so that we too grow strong roots, which will strengthen us on the inside and bring greater stability. Use this time to rest, to reflect, and to dream in the dark. Make time for study, reading, creative projects, art, music, writing, meditation. These things help us to expand inwards and experience this vital edge of our whole selves. Learn from the earth. Look at how you can live your life with an awareness of the interconnectedness of all things. Everything we do and everything we say, think, and feel ripples out into the web of life around us, as well as into our bodies and consciousness, affecting our health and the health of our environment. That is from Glennie Kindred and Letting the Wild Edges In. I just love that last piece. We produce and manifest out there what is already going on in here. So you think your emotions have play some kind of part? Like, you're not kidding. All the conflict, hate, and obscenities that I see in the media world and in the world are all manifestations of what's already been given birth to inside of us, and we're not separate from that. If I'm walking around my home spewing anger here and there, or even irritation, I'm making a contribution to all the things that I'm opposed and trying to stop out there. You know, that group of angry people who damaged this piece of property, or this single one-off post where somebody deeply attacks somebody that I really don't agree with and might judge her or him or it for being angry and it being out of order and wrong. Yet I would just stand up and go and walk and carry my irritation and wrongness in my home, and I'm contributing then, therefore, because I'm part of the world, part of the earth, part of the environment. I'm contributing to what everyone else is doing. It's not my fault per se, yet there is something really valuable about really getting clear on what's going on the inside, because stuff's going on the inside. So is there a healthy projection out there, or is there an unhealthy projection out there? I went surfing yesterday and I'm developing really quickly, and I've still got a lot to learn. And I was in North Devon in Saunton, and I've got my own board, so I'm feeling more comfortable, get to my feet really well. I can catch waves really well. I'm getting fitter and getting a little bit stronger. The surf was beautiful yesterday, really messy and out front, but out the back it was lovely and clean, really big, rich waves. And all of the competent surfers were queuing up to swim out and paddle out along the line of the rocks, because that's where the tide is pulled back out. You know, the water moves back out to sea after the waves have fallen into the bay there. And I felt like I should be able to do that. I was really intimidated by the proximity of the rocks and the confidence of the people that are ahead of me in experience. And I just spent that what was then an hour and 15 trying to take the route to the back, or the waves beyond, through the direct route. And it was exhausting. And it's the way that competent people don't do it, because they know how exhausting it really is. And I'm still learning. And at least at times I can get to my feet when it's not too deep, if I'm just done. But I spent the whole time in this energy and feeling of not good enough and should be stronger, and just constant judgment and harassment, really. Yeah, it was as violent as harassment for how I should be somewhere else other than where I am. And it was really disempowering, and it really took advantage of what could be a lovely connecting experience. This whole head-based noise of and feeling of you should be somewhere else, and there is a happier, better place out there, and there's something wrong with you if you can't do that yet. And I it wasn't, I was in the water for about an hour and a half, and it wasn't until right at the end where I started to almost acknowledge and accept that I'm just not ready to do that. I'm just not ready to take that path, so to speak. And only when I began to accept that did I get anywhere near feeling any different about it and actually enjoying the time that I had, because I wasn't trying to be someone or somewhere else in my process of learning and experience. And why I'm sharing that story is because there was a whole lot of stuff going on inside of me, and I was so intoxicated by the "you should be," what's wrong with you, or you're not man enough, and just some unpleasant inner feelings of inadequacy that, I was completely at the mercy of those emotions and those thinkings. And I'm considering myself really good at this stuff. And it took me an hour and 15 minutes to work out what was really going on and to give myself permission for that to be okay. And I don't know why in that environment right now, I am still learning why I give myself such a hard time about that. I don't give myself such a hard time in other facets of life. It brings to the surface what is actually residing in me. And that's the whole point of this podcast. And I know I'm going to do several of these to hopefully pour some light on this subject and make it matter and make it mean something, because men, the suicide of men is, we outnumber women's suicide rate 2-1, and suicide rate in men is literally at an all-time high. And why? Because when I meet another male who's just about to surf and just about to take that route out to the back because of where they're at, it's not the first thing I say. The first thing I say is not, do you know, I feel a bit intimidated and a bit scared about going out to the back there. Yeah, I'm just letting you know that. I don't need you to say anything, but I'm just acknowledging how I feel. And it seems to feel better that I've told you. I didn't say that, and I kind of held it in. And holding anything in, when you have that experience of wanting to be sick, or the body needs to be sick and vomit, but you don't quite want to, if you're anything like me with vomiting, and you just almost swallow it back down because you don't want it to happen. And it's an identical metaphor it's a metaphor for what we do with our emotions. We just swallow them down. And what is the impact of that on the body? Dr. Gabor Mate would teach us that the body doesn't lie. And the name of the author escapes me, but the body keeps the score. It really matters that we're doing this. And the truth of how men are managing their emotions are in the numbers or in the stats. And someone taking their life is somebody who is not just woken up and decided that today. They've been living in hell for a sustained period of time, and it's just become too much. So this podcast is already on the subject of men and their emotions. And I'm going to discuss the current state of play and how ignoring them really hurts us. I'm going to give some examples of what it sounds like to bring our emotional world into conversation and relationship, and to make that okay. If you ask a man how his day was, you would hear him tell you what he did, what progress was made, what someone didn't do for him, or what someone should have done for him. And that's almost never a description of how he feels. He might even be pissed off and angered by an event that happened, and completely overlook that. Was there a sense of anger was already in the body and in the system before that event? And in fact, that event just triggered what was already there. So in a sense, your entire 100% of your anger is often projected onto the event out there. And the research says that such a high percentage of that emotion is already sat in the body and just waiting for an excuse to come out. And And that's really unhelpful when you're trying to love your wife or husband or family, or compose yourself in a very difficult conversation where words are sensitive and the words actually matter. So you, listener, might consider yourself outside of the statistic of men that are suffering in silence, and just perhaps they just haven't been given the gift of vocabulary for this inner world, and or had the importance of sharing their inner world outlined to them. We are dying from the inside out, and any, yes, as I said, any incident is the result of a long period of inner suffering. And Richard Rohr's got a great quote for this. He says, a young man who cannot cry is a savage, and an old man that cannot laugh is a fool. Hence, a young man that cannot get in touch with his pain would be transmitting his pain to the world around him. It really takes maturity and strength and courage to set about a journey to transform your inner pain. And the old man that cannot laugh is a fool. He's so bitter and twisted, and his emotional state is deteriorated across his whole lifetime, and misunderstood events and their place and the importance of being shaped by this thing called life, to a place where he just spends majority of his time in misery, and laughter is something of a forgotten era. Some words I'm going to give that men might use when they're given the right environment, and they can be given the permission to get in touch with and name their emotions and how they feel. And it's chaotic and painful and messy, and emotions for us guys just feel largely out of control, and that's why we kind of avoid them and just stick to task, because at least I can control task and outcome. When I start to open up to and connect to my emotions, I feel so out of control and stupid and weak and hopeless. Why would I want to spend any time there? And nobody on the planet enjoys that hardship, and the chaos and the pain that can come from exploring that inner world. But denying its presence is really hurting us. And maybe the denial of it all is just all you've known, and maybe you just haven't been given the space to start to explore that, or been given permission to say that it's okay and it actually matters, that you're more than your profit, you're more than the number of people you employ, you're more than your tax return, you're more than how sexy your body is, you're more than how much sex you do and don't get, you're more than the admiration you might receive in your last Facebook or Instagram post. You're so much more than that, and you are worth more than that. And becoming aware of how much you're worth is a work. Actually, we've all got the gift of two important gifts: the gift of unconditional love and the gift of freedom to choose. And your worth is never in question. Your worth is sacrosanct. And what we have been taught to do is work hard, do things to develop, earn a sense of worth, be in control of my sense of worth. And there are different ways to reach stress-free and inner peace. When men tend to name the emotions I'm going to list here, they immediately want to react, solve a problem, fix things. These aren't pleasant words to hear. They are wounds to heal. And I'm not suggesting that every listener is ready to tackle this kind of work. And there are absolutely a plethora of positive, happy, energizing emotions. And the truth is, we don't need a huge amount of help with those, because they feel somewhat a gift. They can be really confusing. They seem to not need much work. The emotions I'm wanting to touch on here today are the emotions that are the shadow boxing from the shadow self. So men might say, or really don't ever say enough, I feel alone. I feel isolated. I feel worthless. I feel ashamed. I feel that nothing I ever do is good enough. I feel unfixable. I'm bad. You should know this by now. You should be able to surf better by now. You don't know enough. You're too stupid. You can't do that. That's not for you. Or that's not for me, I should say. Who do you think you are? You're so fat. You're so ugly. You're so uncool. Some of them are really tough, and some of the listeners might be wincing. I certainly wince as I say them because I know how each one of those feel. Without driving down to the heart of these core emotions, we ignore them, we deny them, and it doesn't make them go away. I'm going to list the emotions that Brené has identified as an antithesis to good, bad, and pissed off. But first, as this is targeted at men, essentially, I know there are going to be a lot of value for women as well here. Got a beautiful poem for you to break down the energy of, oh, no, it's talking about the tough stuff. Oh. It's from a beautiful book called The Rag and Bone Shop of the Heart. You're getting a list of all my best work here, but yeah, I don't know how long I've got left, so may as well share everything I know as soon as I can. Had that realization only recently. This poem is called Balls. It's written by Anne McNaughton. Actually, it's the balls I look for, always. Men in the street, offices, cars, restaurants. It's the nuts, I imagine. Firm, soft, in hairy sacks. The way they are down there, rigged between the thighs. The funny way they are. One in front, a little in front of the other, slightly higher. The way they slip between your fingers. The way they slip around in their soft sack. The way they swing when he walks, hang down when he bends over. You see them sometimes, bright pink, out of a pair of shorts. When he sits wide and unaware, the hair sparse and wiry, like that on a Poland China pig. You can see the skin right through, speckled, with wrinkles like a prune but loose, slipping over those kernels, rocking the smooth, small huevos. Never heard that word. So delicate, the cock becomes a diversion, a masthead over large, its flag distracting from beautiful pebbles beneath. Love that. Love poetry. What can you say about that other than be grateful for the imagery? So, yeah, making a general statement here that in my experience, men have a tendency to find their emotions unhelpful unless they can be harnessed for something useful and positive. They are mostly unwelcome guests in the body and in the home, with the exception of anger, of course, because that tends to be short-term useful, at least, but incredibly destructive long-term. So yeah, emotions are your internal world. And why does that matter? Why is this even an issue? Because what motivates us unconsciously or consciously are our emotions, our thinking, or external factors. And interestingly, our thinking impacts our emotions, and the emotions produce the energy for our action. So emotions have the power. Cognitive behavioral therapy suggests, and it's actually, this is the way it was taught for me, that there's an event, and then there's a judgment, and then there's a feeling, and then there's a reaction. And so event, judgment, feeling, reaction. CBT, cognitive behavioral therapy, actually uses different words, but that's how I was taught it. So there's this notion that an event has thrown me straight to my feeling. So this event has made me angry, but we miss the fact that we've made a judgment about the event. The event doesn't happen on its own. or we attach something to it, we make it mean something, and that meaning that we give it elicits a feeling. So we are responsible for how we feel. And then ultimately, once we're into feeling, the reaction takes care of itself. As soon as once I'm angry, how I react in that anger, it is done unconsciously. We're drunk on the emotion, one could say. To conclude, then, our emotions are critical in understanding how we are currently doing what we have done or how we want to do life. And as men, we have a tendency to downplay them because, to be honest with you, we don't understand them. And so we feel stupid and avoid and deny. And I'm not, am I? I'm here to shine some light. I'm not here to convince you that they matter and that you should go ahead and understand your internal world. If any of you have partners, go ahead and ask them about your internal world and ask them what emotions they see you demonstrate on a regular basis. And just see if that tallies up with what you perceive, and tell them to be really honest. Here are the emotions: stress, overwhelm, anxiety, worry, avoidance, excitement, dread, fear, vulnerability, comparison, admiration, reverence, envy, jealousy, resentment, Schadenfreude, which means taking pleasure in somebody's misfortune, Freudenfreude, which means celebrating in somebody's achievements and success, boredom, disappointment, expectations, regret, discouragement, resignation, frustration, awe, wonder, confusion, curiosity, interest, surprise. Could have said surprise. God, I didn't know. Amusement, bittersweetness, nostalgia, cognitive dissonance, not so much a feeling, that one. Sarcasm, being sarcastic, anguish, hopelessness, despair, sadness, grief, compassion, pity, empathy, sympathy, suffering, shame, guilt, humiliation, embarrassment, belonging, connected, disconnected, insecure, invisible, lonely, love, lovelessness, heartbreak, betrayal, betrayed, defensive, flooded, hurt, joyful, happy, calm, content, gratitude, foreboding, joy, relief, tranquility, peace, anger, contempt, disgust, hate, self-righteous, pride, humility, gratitude. I want to say, I'm not sure if we've said gratitude. It's listed at the bottom there. Wow. There was a lot there, and that's more than good, bad, or pissed off. Here are some quotes I get from men, all about to see what you hear in here. She has time off and all she does is nothing. Why doesn't she just get out and do something? He comes home and says to her, "What have you done that's been productive today then?" Quote, "Tell me exactly what I have to do to get back together with her. Tell me exactly what I have to do to get rid of her." She can't see, she's totally empty. There's the projection. She never wanted to do anything with me ever. Again, just so much about doing, isn't it? What can I do to show her that I'm listening more? My kids never do what they're told. Some quotes from women, though. He never listens. He doesn't understand my internal world. He only wants something from me. He doesn't know how to connect with me. And what that really means is he doesn't actually know how to connect with her inner world. Only wants to connect with the body, which is an important point, because for men that aren't aware of this, sex gives an instant sense of connection and almost unconsciously giving acceptance. Like this really matters. Like, you have a place here. And for men that spend a lifetime in their heads and wander around with nothing but pain in their bodies, sex is a very powerful, what feels like, sounds like an antidote to that. And it's really not, because it's used for their gain. Sex with love can be the most beautiful thing in the world. And sex used to get somewhere other than deeply connecting is dangerous. And it's kind of how we all do it. We tend to go into sex with what's in this for me, and what can I get, and how can this make me feel. I hear men say all the time, she really enjoys it. And I don't know why she doesn't want me to do it with her more, because she enjoys it so much. And the truth is, men like the way that makes them feel. I like the way that makes me feel. That's the truth of it. And so it's not about them. And it's confusing, because you think, well, she really enjoyed it, surely she would want to have it with me more often. And well, you're giving her pleasure, yes, but that's about you wanting to give her pleasure, and how that makes you feel as a man, as you think you should feel. Back to surfing in the bay. I should be able to go around the rocks and should be able to get to the back. Seem to get and have infinitely more sex when my wife feels deeply cared for by me and safe. And safe doesn't seem to be a word that is synonymous with wanting to get something for you. Guys, we need sex podcasts, don't we? And people rarely say what they mean or mean what they say. I seem to have some kind of sixth sense for reading between the lines, and that's not always 100% accurate. Yet this work, the work I do and I'm fond of and I have a heart for, is opening the box, opening up the space, opening up the dialogue, and having a look-see to help people understand and name what's really going on for them and understand it more effectively. And the illusion is that we spend most of our time in a neutral state, that we're not any of these things that I've just listed. We're in a space of neutrality, and then the event occurs, and the event is completely then to blame, because before this event occurred, I was okay, and now this event occurred, and now I'm angry. So then the logic says it must be entirely the fault of the event as to why I'm angry. Yet we just are so unaware of what emotions are present in our body. You just ask a man, and it terrifies a lot of men to ask them, how do you feel right now? And you just see a puff of smoke as they run for the hills. And I had a really wonderful soul say to me recently, his worst nightmare is to be in a classroom and be asked how he feels, because he just doesn't know what to say. And that's a beautiful thing, because there's space for him to explore that if he wishes. I just wonder how many men would be captured by that. Put them in a classroom with a whole bunch of stuff to do and problems to solve and things to fix. They would do absolutely great. And I dare say they would do that if their wives were rolled in as well. How do I fix and solve this problem? So Bob is out washing the car, and him and his wife Sarah haven't had sex for 2 weeks. They keep getting interrupted by the kids. He's been busy with work. The bills have been paid, but they haven't saved as much as they wish. So routine family situation here. Him and his partner Sarah haven't hugged yet today, but there are things to do, things to get done on this Sunday. And one of them is washing the car. It's a warm day and it's sunny, and there is a tap immediately outside. Bob has a sufficient length of hose to wash the car and all the equipment he needs to wash the car. And if anybody were to walk up to Bob in that moment and ask him, what is your emotional state right now? Or more commonly, hey, how are you, Bob? Bob would routinely reply with, oh, I'm good. Or, yeah, I'm fine. Yep. So the questioner would based on Bob's answer, believe that he is indeed fine. And 5, 4, 3% of the time, this is actually true. He might add, if I can just hurry up and get this car done because I've got other things to do today, then I'll be okay. Can you hear that? Then he'll be blissfully happy and eternally peaceful, accessing the peace that surpasses all understanding if he gets all that stuff done. And we really believe that, don't we? Can't stop to find peace. No, I will just find peace as a reward as a result of getting all this stuff done. And then I forget that. I was hoping for that, but I then set about writing my next to-do list for tomorrow. What I'm wanting to open up here with this story with Bob is that what first meets the eye or the ear is not the whole picture, and inquiring beyond, just one step beyond, just one layer below, is actually really kind. And people might respond to that in a multitude of different ways. And why I'm suggesting just a layer is because some people, men or women, might not want to go another layer deeper. And of all these years of the work that we do here, I've realized that timing is literally everything. And I have learned that the skill I've developed is when someone is able to hear a piece of information or not. And, you know, there's a very small window and they have to feel very safe and be very willing to hear the most important information that they can hear, that they need to hear. And if that's not ready, they'll just feel attacked because it flipping hurts. So timing is everything. And so if you just get a sense that it's not the right time, just don't. You can ask if it's the right time. Are you open to me asking you another question about that? Are you willing for me to open that subject up a bit more with you right now? So asking for permission. So let's say that we walk into this space with an open heart. Everything I've just said about the person who is the subject, Bob here in this subject, there's, as yet in my words, there's been no provision for where are you? Where are you the questioner to be able to ask that? So this is all about relationship. Is the listener in the place to hear it? And are you the questioner in the place to ask it? You know, have you got that skewed up look on your face? And even if you said something nice, it would sound like a scaffolding pole in the back of the ear. So we have an open heart, vulnerable, and Bob's never gifted this space to talk about how he's really doing or how he feels. And if you were to measure the cost of the Bob's happiness against the size of his car, the size of his home, his level of physical health, etc., how his wife looks, how his kids are all pleasy and nice and appear to be smiling, you might judge he's doing great. And we're just going to assume that we've got no idea. So we're going to inquire. Hey, Bob. I say. Bob connects and looks at my eyes. Hi, Ben. How are you? This is almost visiting how else it could be done. And so I'm aware of this. Bob changing the subject and then giving it straight to me. He gives me the chance to speak, but I know what Bob is up to. He does this so often. And he's got no idea that he's denying himself an experience to connect with the Ben, to open up, to explore, and to have some space. So I reply. I say, I'm good, Bob. I really want to give you the chance to tell me how you're really doing. So often I ask a surface level question, and I would just really like to ask you a question with a little bit more meaning than how are you doing today? So Bob's reaction might be a little bit confused. He might be tentative and question what Ben is wanting to get here and what he's wanting to do. Why is he acting so unusually? And well, as you're asking, says Bob, I've got a lot to do. And I feel that every day that I've got a lot to do. And I feel angry about that. In fact, I've been angry all week. Now, Bob ordinarily would never say this unless he feels really safe and that you're in a place to really listen to him. And Bob's actually doing great. And he's really opening up. And yet he's not perhaps in the space to understand his anger. He might project that onto the people around him and blame them. And now we might go ahead and believe and name some of the things that he believes are responsible for his anger. Yet he's gone a step further than just saying, yes, I'm good. He's actually talking about how he really feels. Making that connection to how he feels is so much more valuable than just spitting out some opinion or some blame for what was done. Like the fact that he names how he feels is at least a step in the right direction. Bob continues, work has been really busy. Don't get so-and-so done. And the kids have been on at me all week. And sex with Sarah is just an absolute no-go right now. And isn't that wonderful? You know, this is completely artificial interaction here. Yet he's just starting to open the door to some of his emotions. And that, as the listener, I wouldn't make any comment about any of the details. I wouldn't even offer my sympathy. I would just choose to deeply listen. And I don't know how many of you listening have ever given yourself that opportunity. In fact, it might even be easier to listen to a pre-recorded message like this, to listen deeply. But how often do we really deeply listen live in the moment? I would end this interaction with Bob then. I'm really grateful that you shared that with me, buddy. And I would just project that in my demeanor and in my facial expression and in my energy. And I wouldn't have gone ahead and asked Bob and inquired a level deeper if I didn't actually care about him. So don't do it if you don't actually care. Just stay with the artificial. I'm gonna just wrap up here with how valuable this has been to explore emotions and for you to give yourself permission to listen to a guy just opening up the subject of emotions. We could do a ton of episodes and explore each one of the emotions that I've listed. And if you were to ask me for a helpful outcome, well, everyone's outcome is different for each one of these. And if you've been willing to listen, you must be willing to investigate the subject of your emotional internal weather. And the power of that can lead you to just by far happier places. And perhaps rewind the podcast and find the emotions as a result of this piece here and listen to them all again and see if you can connect with any one of them for where you're at right now, rather than being occupied by what you've got to do next now you've listened, or what you want to get more of. And what you want to get more of is never what you really need anyway. So give yourself that gift to just hit stop, rewind a little bit, and see if you can really connect to where you are right now. There's nothing more valuable. A common complaint is he comes home from work and he brings his work with him. And the misperception is that you've got this picture of a guy who's just brought in a 1980s briefcase full of all of his paperwork that he's got to open up on the table and crack on with. By and large, what people mean is he's still completely stuck in the office and stuck in his work in his head. So his body is here, but his heart and head are just, his heart's not here. His body is here physically, but his head is still completely back in the office. And hey, guys, this is not a beat up on men subject. It's actually bringing light to the fact that you've just come home, your head full of worries and anxieties and stresses, which is what life is putting up on you right now, and giving yourself permission to have just 10 minutes in the car, to be quiet, to shut down, to stop, to tune into the rhythm of your breath. Just taking 5 or 6 breaths before you go in the house. Kerry has asked me recently to not come in if I've been out and had a busy day, not come in the house when I pull up. As soon as I pull in the house, I get out of the car and I run up to the house. Can't wait to see Kerry and the kids. And she's asked me to just take some time, because as soon as I walk in the door, I'm going to receive 150 plus questions in the first 3 or 4 minutes. And it's quite overwhelming. So being in a good space and ready to receive them and receive Kerry rather than wanting to be received, is a step towards a happier world. There's nothing more happier than loving and bringing about goodness to your home. The happier your home, the greater the benefit to everyone and everything in the world out there. Really, it matters. Okay. How to end? How to end? Let us see. Oh, beautiful. Connection. Getting out of your head. Can't connect in the head. Can only connect in the head through opinion and judgments and words, language. Connection is for the heart and soul. Connection is the energy that exists between people when they feel seen, heard, and valued. Not corrected. When they can give and receive without judgment. And when they derive sustenance and strength from their relationship. Every relationship is an opportunity to grow stronger or weaker, to take or to give, to be present or not, to love or to not, to hate or to not, to contribute or to take. Everything's going to be okay. Good luck, guys. Enjoy your week. God bless you and your hearts and your families. Give you a hug if I could. Have a great day, night, evening. See ya.